My name is Wayne Yates. I was born 11/24, 1989 in Richmond, Virginia, and this is my story. So, we'll start from the beginning. When I was, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years old at the most before I last seen my real mom. Um, she was highly abusive on lots of drugs, pretty much. And I don't remember too terribly much. Some memories are vivid. Like I remember her standing in the hallway one time, um, screaming at me that she's gonna kill my dad when he gets home. She was just well, she was on a lot of drugs, and I remember she used to feed us spoiled hot dogs, and she didn't really feed us at all a lot. Actually, my older brother had to sneak food to us when we were younger. He had to go in the kitchen and still a pack of bologna to bring it in the room and to feed us, just to make sure we fed and got fed right and stuff. And I remember being held underwater in a bathtub at one point, and I remember holding a knife to my wrist in the kitchen. Um, you don't really remember why, but when you're that young, you're not gonna you don't deserve it anyways at that age. 4 or 5 years old, why would you? I remember having her hand over my mouth, and then a knife. She was trying to hold my hand still. It was like her arm was over my mouth, and she was trying to hold my wrist still while she shaking with the knife in her hand above my wrist. Um, but took me. I'm 33 years old now, and I didn't even touch a hot dog. I couldn't touch a hot dog without puking till maybe about 31 years old. It's a crazy effect that it has. Something that young growing up. Um, you know, when you're that young, you can't really fight back. It's just not right. I remember we were beaten with the curtain hangers, the metal rods that held the curtains up. She used to beat us with those. 4 or 5 years old. Uh, we were all young. All my brothers were all 1 year apart. And, um, you know, uh, my little brother's 2 years younger than me, so I know he probably wouldn't remember much at all. But then my brother Andrew is a year above older than I am, and then my brother Joe's a year older than him. And when we moved out, my dad married my stepmom. Well, my dad actually got her my dad knew about the abuse. He was coming home after work, buying himself, one of them dollar tall boys, and going without eating. Put we're in poverty. He'll buy us pizza, and he wouldn't eat. He'll just get his dollar beer and made sure we ate when we got home. My dad was a good man. He just living in poverty and married a drug addict didn't really help. So he ended up eventually buying her a bus ticket to Kansas where her mom is, and sent her off on her way. Never seen her again. I think she called like 2, 3 times in her life, and she never even really asked about us. It was just begging my dad for money. Um, I heard my little brother went there a few years ago just to meet her. She never denied she was a bad parent or anything. But it was what he told me when he met her. But I never seen her again. I never cared to. It doesn't really bother me as an adult anymore. It's just another person I didn't know in my life. But it is part of my life and part of the story I'm telling today. And so my dad remarried when we were young, shortly after getting rid of her, bringing on my stepbrother Trace. Um, so he was between the age of Joe and Andrew. So when I was 5, Andrew was 6, Joe was 7, Trace was somewhere between that 6, 7 baseline. And we all got held back in school except Trace. Me being my stepbrother, we missed too many. I missed too many days of school in kindergarten, which was crazy growing up because in. We were always one grade next to each other, right? So when I was in 6th grade, my brother Andrew was in 7th grade. My brother Joe was in 8th grade, and my brother Trace was in 9th grade. We're all there was one of us in each grade in high school. It was wild. Um, so going back, growing up, my dad was a good man. He tried, he worked hard, ended up getting out of poverty. He put us in martial arts and stuff. My stepmom, none of us really seen eye to eye with my stepmom. Like, she was bipolar. She had issues too, and thinking of the situation, she does had growing up adopting four new children that are wild, crazy, beating the crap out of each other, jumping off the roofs. We're all highly ADHD and stuff, and from an abusive family, right? So from her, I could kind of see in her perspective being bipolar and adopting some wild boys, pretty much, because we were crazy. Um, but uh, she had some issues, and I remember being kicked across the floor. Just being kicked over and over again from like the dining room all the way into the bathroom. She had a little bit of a drinking problem at times. Um, but uh, there were instances, but for the most part, she was actually a pretty good mom. She was a little bit of the mental abuse, screaming, that were retarded and never gonna amount to nothing, blah blah blah. When we were getting older, I guess she thought that if she told us we couldn't do something, we'll try harder to do it, which wasn't necessarily true. It was kind of true for my dad, but so there was more of that little bit of a mental abuse, but at the same time, I'm no one's perfect. She was more mental issues. At least she wasn't, doing heavy drugs and beating us with rods. Um, but she tried. She did take care of us and helped raise us, and she ended up being, in her adult days, there's words that I had, resentment from some of the things in the past, but uh, you know, it ended up we ended up forgiving, forgiving each other and grow after as an adult. So some of the things that happen, people aren't perfect, and you know, it was what it was. Um, it turned out when I was younger, she was actually really scared of me. She used to lock her room when she slept to keep me out. Apparently, I used to freak her out some. I don't know why I was so scary to people when I was a kid. I was more of the. I mean, I was odd, I guess, and I don't know. People seem to be scared. I do crazy things. It was never really true, but it was what it was. Um, in school, I wasn't really the most popular person. My brothers were. My brothers were heavily popular. My brother Trace was the quarterback. Um, my brother Joseph was an all-time wrestler. Went national and stuff. He was doing his thing. Um, I remember doing crazy stuff in school with some of the friends and things I had. Uh, we were playing games or who could take the most pain, and I had a high tolerance of pain. If you ever asked my dad, he used to claim he had to break me in half for me to feel anything. Like I remember, sticking pencils in my hand until one time the graphite broke off, and that was probably the last time I ever did that. Getting kicked in the nuts for money. I remember, rubbing eraser on my hand over and over again until those third-degree burns. Um, I remember we used to fight, for the hell of it, out in PE, those tracks, and then there was a split where the tracks where there was, those cut through that we could go and hide, and we'd go and cut through and come out all muddy and bloody, and oh, I fell type things. Um, that was all in middle school. Like that was just middle school days. So high school, I guess whatever mentality I had in middle school of all the crazy things we done. I am highly ADHD, but I guess for me to do all that stuff in middle school, there was some things in my head that weren't all there in high school. But in high school, I had to, high school. I guess I grew up a little more. Um, I had to teach myself, to defend. We had to defend ourselves and stuff. I wasn't popular. People always mess with me. But my dad always taught us. My dad always taught us if we're not a man until we get that diploma in hand. Um, so um, I don't know. I remember in high school there were kids that were always attacking me in certain ways, throwing things at me. Just being high school dicks, I guess. And there was times I was coming home shaking. And there's times my brothers went to school and stuck up for me, and that always kind of made it worse in the end because it only helped until a few weeks down the line. Um, so I grew up getting out of high school. My mom freaking out. I need to get a job and stuff. But I used to walk 12 hours a day looking for work. Um, Never found anything. So literally just walking job place to job place, asking for jobs. Um, I ended up moving with this girl I dated, and I was doing the whole labor ready to make money where I can, doing the little side works that are found for you, and labor finders, labor ready, and it wasn't really going that well. And this girl was the girl that I moved in with. She was nuts, and she cheated on me a whole lot. But it was the first girl I ever dated. I actually dated her coming out of high school, and I never been with anyone. So you don't know. You get that fake sense of love of being with the first person, and she's going around whoring, fucking whoever she can. It was not the best person to be with, and she kept asking, she wanted me to take her hand in marriage. That about all the time she cheated on me, and I wouldn't marry her. And it was always, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. And um, she was always talking about suicide, and she was cutting herself. She's cutting herself a lot. She obviously had some issues of her own. So she ended up getting pregnant, and I never, told my family or anything about it. It was kind of a scary time, but she ended up going in the restroom apparently a lot of times and just beating on her stomach. And one day she comes out, and I never knew, what I mean. She like she wanted marriage, she wanted a family. I wasn't ready for marriage. I was telling her I wasn't ready because I didn't want to marry, someone whoring around with me so much, and she'd be beating on her stomach apparently in the bathroom. One day she came out, oh, it was a miscarriage. like what the fuck, right? And she'd always want sex like 20 times a day, and I mean she was a nymphophiliac whore, and that's pretty much what it was. So I ended going out talking to some random dude on the internet who said he had me a place to stay. We talked. This one dude, me, we talked on the internet for years. And I didn't really know him from Adam, but we had long conversations and stuff. And he said, "Well, I could come move in with him." And he said he had work for me. He had a business and side work. And he said I could, go move up with him. So I didn't know any. I didn't do any research or anything. I didn't have any work. I needed work. I didn't. I just getting out of this crazy relationship, and I really didn't want to go back home to my parents. Those, always screaming about me finding a job and stuff. And it's like, well, this dude's offering me roof over my head, job, money in my pocket, married man, and. I didn't really know anything about Flint, Michigan at the time, but that's where it was. And I moved in to Flint, Michigan at the time. It was the number one murder capital. And Flint, Michigan was wild, man. I got all sorts of stories about Flint, Michigan. Um, Sit up a little bit. But um but it became the number one murder capital when I moved down there. They found 16 bodies in the Flint River in one day. It's just all different cases, and it's just where the bodies were washing up. Um, there was all sorts of drugs and craziness there. And I hung out with some old friends who used to drink and stuff. Um, and that's all I ever did there was drink, smoke weed, off with these old guys. Um, but every street there was different. They had like these old street gangs, and I just stuck up with these old heads, just drunk and smoked and watched the world as the world was crazy around me. And I didn't mind hanging out with alcoholics. That was the best people in the whole whole county. I've seen everyone small place. Everyone in Flint, those are the best people in the county. And I don't know. When I was there, I didn't fall into the life of drugs. Luckily, there was many nights was blacking out, waking up on the floor. Um, but I ended up working with a landlord, fixing up houses and stuff, remodeling. But the guy I was living with, his wife kept bitching about me, and that to me, and I could, stand by the stairs and just hear them over talking. And he was sticking up for me. I was a lot better than his last roommate. I actually worked and stuff, and I learned a lot about restoring houses and refurbishing, old crack homes. And but the woman that he was married to just continued to complain about me. So I told him one day, I was like, "Look, man, I appreciate the offer and stuff, but I don't really want to live in a place where I'm not welcome." And I went on living on the street, and I visited it every now and again. My old drink buddies, they take me in, and we get really fucking drunk at their house, and I might crash on their, couch once or twice. But I stayed at a lot of shelters. Um, I ended up going to this, I was drinking one day on a corner and found this one dude who ended up taking me to a party with a bunch of bikers, and I ended up dancing with the wrong girl there. And they all jumped me. I remember running down the street. One dude clipped me, and I clipped him back and took off. Running down the street with like 50 people running at me, but half the crowd was at me, and the other half was trying to stop the first half from getting me. Those people there sticking up for me, and then people there. I was just drunk, and then ended up dancing with the wrong person, and they caught me on the street. And got a couple licks on me. 30 against one really isn't really a good fight. But the other ones pulled me off, pulled them off of me, and ended up, don't come on my street again. What I meant, every street was different. I got banned from that biker street. But I walked out it once or twice. I was never afraid of anything. Should have been, but fear wasn't in my hardwired in my brain at this moment anymore. Um, but I ended up doing volunteer work, volunteering in a homeless kitchen. I was a homeless dude volunteering for the homeless, and I did that for a while. I was walking 4 hours a day uh, in Michigan to donate plasma. It was a 2 hours there, 2 hours back. Plasma is the white blood cells, white cells in your blood. I used to donate it, and it would be $35. I'd get $55 a week I would get like $35 the first time and 20 the second. Donate twice a week, on a long walk. And one day I was walking, and this dude stopped me, and um, it was a good day, and he said, dude, he stopped me in a panic, saying his hood wouldn't open, and he wanted help looking at his hood, and I'm like, I'm no mechanic, but me wanting to help someone out, it's like, it's a hood, I'll take a look at it, see if there's anything I could do. So I'm looking at his hood. He goes in his car, he grabs a hammer, and I think he's gonna try to pry it open or something, But instead, he hit me twice in the head, back of the head with the hammer. He and I remember I didn't know. I was stunned. I didn't know what was going on. I tried to run. He grabbed my shirt, but I scrambled and got away. And he jumped in his car and sped off. And I was stunned. I didn't know what happened for a minute. You know what I mean? It caught me off guard. Touching the back of my head and looked down. It was the most blood I ever seen for my own body. And I remember a school bus driver stopped, and he asked me if I was okay, and ended up telling him what happened, and he sped off. So here I am with a lot of blood on me. I took off my shirt, covered my head, and a dude on a bike came strolling by, and he said, there's a young black kid, actually, and he goes, dude, what's up? You need help? You alright? And I was like, no, I just got hit in the head with a hammer. And he says, well, is there anything you need? And I said, yeah, water. Right? So I ended up following him. It was half a block down. Wet my shirt, I remember, and wet my shirt good and putting it on the head. He let me use his hose in the back. He said he can't let me in. It was just, he didn't own the place. But he let me use the hose to wet my shirt. I put my shirt on my head. Took the hour and a half back walk. Hour is about an hour and a half in on the walk to go donate. He let me, I took the walk back. It's crazy. And then jumping in the shower at home. That was the worst mistake I ever made. Don't just jump in the shower with a head injury. that shit hurt. So that didn't last long. Got cleaned up the best that I could. Half my friends believe I needed to go to the doctor. Half of them didn't. I didn't know if I had a concussion or not. And they're like, don't fall asleep, in case they have a concussion. And I'm like, fuck that. I just got attacked for no reason. I'm gonna get drunk and pass out. That was just that was the mentality I had at that point. It ended up being a serial killer. I could always look him up, not at the moment, but he was a pretty big serial killer. Apparently, attacked me. I remember hearing everyone's like, on the TV, they were talking about this white guy going around attacking people. I'm like, man, it's not the same dude who got me. You know what I mean? But I was like, the dude who attacked me was a, goddamn foreigner. He's a big foreigner. And when they caught the serial killer dude, he was actually on his way back to his country. Jumping on a plane, and they caught him at the airport. And it's like, oh, apparently, it was the same dude. They just had the wrong, description. So I don't know. It was a wild time. But the next day, I just put on a cap, walked in my 2 hour walk, still donated plasma. I still needed that $55 a week, man. It was bad. Um, Probably not the smartest thing to do to donate blood after losing a lot, but it is what I did. Um, so I ended up dating this old lady there. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much an older lady, but I wasn't with. I was at a party, um, in a trailer park, uh, but and this couple tried to get me a hookup with this old lady, tried to get me in, and we ended up hooking up, and oh man, that one was a wild one. Um, I pretty much stayed with her for a place to stay. But things started getting out of hand. Pretty quick with her. She was a wild person. um, she fell off the porch one time. Got drunk. Had to go to the hospital, and she sitting there. She said some crazy stuff at the hospital. I remember that. I ended up rubber tripping in the hospital because that was the only time I ever rubber tripped. It was wild. I ended up buying some Robitussin in the pharmacy in the hospital and chugging it. And then I jumped on the bus saying that I was a patient, and people on the bus recognized me, got me back home at the trailer park. Um, she ended up coming home saying, she said she would be. I was trying to leave one time. She was always getting in my way, like you ain't leaving, like blocking the doorway. And she's like, I'll call the cops and tell them you pushed me, and that's how I got hurt, and blah blah blah, and all these crazy threats about fucking trying to frame me and shit. And it was like, she became really stalkerish, and she was always like, I'll pay someone to take you out and stuff like that. And she told me that one time. I'll pay someone to take you out. I'd put a knife in her hand. I said, bitch, if you're going to do something, do it. And I walked away. Well, you're going to kill me. Go ahead. Turn my back. Right. And, I was homeless again. She drove around on the streets for hours and hours looking for me. She would go, where I went donating plasma. She would be circling the bars, my old friend's house. Just straight up fucking searching for me on the streets all day. Oh, I'm sorry, trying to get me back. Very, very stalker woman. I never had someone who stalked me like that. But I mean, it was Flint, so you never know. People got shot every day for no reason at all in Flint. There's always you hear gunshots throughout the night. Um, Cops that got shot right down the road from me. There's bullet holes in the first house I lived in. It was literally like a third world country. There's people, um, There's people in Flint. There's people hitting the crack pipes in front of the cops as the cops drove by, waving at the cops. And the cops didn't mess with people. They got shot at too. There's there's like eight police in the whole area, and the whole force. Like it was bad, and you'd hear like police shootouts and shit every week. And it was a wild day. Wild place to be. Um, I remember this one dude. Okay, this dude who used to threaten me going down the street stuff. He ended up moving out this house and abandoning the house up. And apparently he had 3 dogs taken from him for animal cruelty in the past. But he moved out of this house and he boarded his house up with a dog in it. And I remember I had to rip off the plywood, and I ripped off the plywood and rescue this dog. And the dog's biting at me and stuff. He had blood on his nose. I'm throwing hot dogs at it to get him to try to calm down. It's what one of my friends gave me to try to get the dog out the house. And the dog's pretty vicious. Once I got it out the house, he was he calmed down. He became a lot better dog. One day I was partying at this abandoned house with some other homeless people and my dog, and this one dude was an old security officer. He was homeless, but he had a security badge and stuff. I guess he used to do security, and big motherfucker. He was 320 pounds, 40 pounds, something like that. He's a big dude, and I was scrawny and drunk, you know, at the time, and he said he could outdrink me, and we wanted to make a bet that he could outdrink me, and he was dead wrong on the whole outdrinking me ideal. He got a little too drunk, and I'm finishing my beer, and he got a little too drunk, and he started swinging on the dog that I rescued. Like, you swinging at my dog, bro? I ended up choking him out. I went in there and choked him the fuck out, and he got out 20 minutes later and finished my beer. I'm now drinking his, and I'll beat your ass anytime, any day. Like, you're right. And I just remember jumping up and just non-stop swinging. Like, I started off, I elbowed him first, threw that elbow right into the eye, and just wouldn't stop swinging until he ended up shitting himself. And it was a wild moment, but it was like, you don't swing at the dog that I rescued. Like, you don't swing at my dog, bro. I cared more about that dog than I did myself. In reality, if he would have swung at me, I would have probably been a little more merciful. 2 weeks later, I'm partying with the same people, and I blacked out, and they ended up throwing me out of a 2-story, abandoned building and at a dumpster. Um, I don't know what happened there. And then they ended up ganging up on me. Got a bunch of other homeless people, and I guess they're gay, sucking each other's dicks. I don't know. He ended up old military dude, old security. They ended up pulling weapons out, and they wouldn't let me leave with my dog. They pretty much took my dog by force. That was wild. Wish I still had that dog. But they ended up, when I moved away from Michigan, they ended up giving him to my buddies because they couldn't take care of him. My old drinking buddies. But there's this one guy who's too drunk to go home one day, and I ended up partying. I don't know how I got to this party. I ended up at many parties in Flint randomly, but he ended up getting too drunk, and I walked him home. Put his arm around my shoulder and made sure he didn't stumble too much. Got him home. He ended up telling me about this abandoned U-Haul that was in the middle of a field when he used to sleep on the street or whatnot, and was covered in blankets and stuff. There was no door to it, but there was 40, 50 blankets piled in there. One day, it was snowing bad. I guess he pointed me the way to live in this, abandoned trailer with thousands of blankets and bullet holes, but it was warmer on the thousands of blankets than it would have been, in the freezing Flint snow, Michigan snow. So I stayed there for a few weeks, between there and crashing at my drinking buddies, my drunk drinking buddies' places every now and again when they allowed it. And Um, I was walking around the area where um I guess the abandoned uh U-Haul. It had a little river area. I was walking down it, walking down the Flint River, looking at the area, and I guess someone had some pot grown down there, and they seen me and just started lighting up bullets at me at one point, and get the fuck out of there. So I get shot at just by being in the wrong area. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. That was exactly the reason, but we're definitely just being shot at walking down the river. I just heard about plants being down there, and later on, telling the story to my drinking buddies. Um, so they could have been protecting plants. They could have just been shooting to shoot. I don't know, but I know. I was don't know exactly fully. Can't really say the reason, but I do know. So had me going, and I never went back to that abandoned trailer again. um, so I had my some of my good buddies from Fredericksburg came picked me up one day. They were going down there to a funeral. They were driving past Flint to a different area in Michigan. Really, really close people of mine. They ended up picking me up all the way, drove me back to Fredericksburg, Virginia. Um, so I was back in my home state again. Ended up moving in with my brother Joe. And my brother Joe, he's been struggling with drugs his whole life. Um, it's always been a thing, drugs, with him. And I remember going back, getting in an argument with my stepmom again. Because apparently she was paying Joe for me to live there, and I didn't know that. And she thought Joe got clean, and Joe was taking all my money, and it was I was those old rotten banana pills always ending up in the cup for some odd reason on the table. It wasn't I constantly had to clean. And he was always I don't know. Um, I told my stepmom it was a hot and eager argument. And he goes, he's still on drugs, and he's not on fucking drugs, and blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, he's still on drugs. He just got better at hiding it. And she told me, I could go back to Flint, live on the street for whatever the hell she carried. That was a fucking straw in an argument. You know what I mean? Like, you've gone way too far. But she didn't know anything about. She didn't know anything about what happened to me. I still don't think she does. Dead. She's gone now. But I don't think she really knew what happened in Flint. Um. So I couldn't. I ended up getting her gifts and stuff later on her birthday to make up for the huge argument. Trying to, dropping her off gifts that I picked up from her and at her job. To try to, I was the bad one apparently. They're trying to make amends and stuff, which ended up happening. Gonna make amends. She was given 2 years to live, but she was given 2 years to live. She lasted a good five more years or so. But I ended up going down with the down south with the uncle of mine. Ended up moving in with an uncle. My good buddies who pulled me out of Flint, Michigan, drove me all the way down. I guess the closest place that a lot of people know that's kind of known it would be Bristol, Virginia. But it was a little town called Honaker. Well, I lived with my second cousin, Greg Honaker, and Bernie Honaker Road, and there was a place called Yates Mountain, and my last name's Yates. I was 70% of my family down there. The whole mountains, ran by pretty much my family. But Honaker's a small town. You blink, you'll miss it. It was close to another place. I guess it was Lebanon, Bristol, Lebanon. Lebanon was probably the closest place to Honaker. Um, but I was living down there, and I guess I don't know. I was working at Mickey D's. I got a job at McDonald's. Um, but I had no car. I was relying on my uncle to drive me to work 2 hours to get to McDonald's every day when he was going to work. That he was doing trucking and whatnot. Um, he ended up getting me a house on 200 acres, and he ended up having to pick me up to drive me to work, to drop me back off. Dude, it was straight isolation, right? Um, but the landlord, I guess it was just his old dad's house, and he needed things done. It's pretty much $300 a month to live in this house. One of the things is I gotta help fix it up. And I had no real money, and it was isolation, and the only entertainment I had was drinking. I had no TV. There's a Great Pyrenees that was given to me. It actually attacked me. As my uncle's. Well, when I moved out on the 300 acres, he said, look, I can't have this no more. He said, he used to have the dog run around, do what he wants, but then more kids and family, and started moving on the mountain, and he had to started, chaining it up. He said, there's no place for the Great Pyrenees to live. And I remember that dog broke a 6-inch chain 3 times, dragging me across the farmland. It was a big dog. Um, but he helped me get a job and stuff, and then he said, look, he'd be later on down the road. He needed more money. He had another job lined up, and I told him, look, man, if that's what you need to do, take it. He said something to me one day, long before that says, hey, you got a job, but when does getting a job ever stop you from getting a career? And that always stuck in my mind, and I didn't take that advice looking for a career like I should have, but I didn't have a license or nothing either. This was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I told him, and I said, man, if you need to do something to make your life better, you can't let me drag you down and make your life better, and I'll figure it out. And he ended up taking another job. Called up my brother Andrew. My brother Andrew didn't want to see me, go through the homeless life again. Apparently, my brother Andrew was homeless in a different state at one point for a bit. And he invited me up to Washington State, and so I ended up going to Washington State after the mountains. The mountains weren't all that bad. It was just, it was what it was, and it ended like it was. But there was good family, good friends, good folk, good chapter of my life that ended it, and I ended up going to Washington State with my brother. He was working a security job. Um, and he wanted to try to get me in this. He told me this place. He used to work at a trampoline place, high trampoline, high whatever. A bunch of kids jumping on trampolines on walls. Um, so I was promised a job at the trampoline place. When I got to Washington State, the dude said he didn't have the work. He said he wasn't in position to hire. Naturally, when I get there. So, his roommates, I guess, you can't, they got tired of, or they're ready to move, and they're a couple for years and ready to get their own place. And my brother Andrew and me were there, and I wasn't really working, and I guess me and Andrew were kind of crazy for him. So we ended up calling my old Andrew. My brother. He's my closest brother. He called my old closest, our old one of our closest friends from high school, in our little high school group, and he ended up. He was in California at the time, and he ended up bringing us to California. Now, I got a lot of stories about California, but I'm gonna end up trying to water things down a lot for this video. I know I can't really say anything that could be held against anybody in any certain way, mentally, legally, whatever. um, but I ended up growing a little bit in California. Um, they're my brother Andrew ended up on the news here back at Virginia. He came back to Virginia. I was in California. They're both doing their things. I was a little bit of an enforcer, is what they called me in California. I don't know how much anything could be said or done on a microphone publicly speaking. But we're just trying to keep our head over water, and we found a place, and I was in a house, and he was back in Virginia, and everything was going great for a while. There was always threats, people threatening to jump up on our property, and steal things. So there was protection. I mean, I was in a place where there's plants over every other fence line, and there was nothing but like growers or tweakers trying to steal from the growers. And it was a little Emerald Triangle place in California, and it's like all the major amounts of grows in the world was. And it's not like there's not thousands of people doing it on a daily basis up there. Um, So, we were getting threats, had people jump in our yard, and I was thrown in, at one point in a tent with a gun to try to make sure the property was protected and stuff. Just trying to watch out on our own. There was a guy with an autistic kid I used to watch. Um, I used to work on a website. I can't really go much detail of that neither. But the website was just, it was a clothing line that we used to have. But I'm not gonna go too much. But Cali life was great. It was a beautiful place. I was there for a while. I had pretty much anything I ever wanted. You know, we were throwing weed in the yard. We had so much of it. Like yeah, it was, North Cal. It was a great, beautiful scenery, woods. It wasn't like South Cal. It was no Hollywood or homeless people or anything like that. It was mountains. It wasn't like the mountains like Virginia mountains. You know what I mean? Here, everything was green. Down there, everything was pretty much brown and dead. But it was still a beautiful place, beautiful lake. I remember breaking my foot rope swinging there one time. Um, Met some wild people, had some wild stories. It was the first. It was life was calming down a little bit. Um, and then the whole my brother got in trouble. I came back. Cops took everything here. Uh, and the news hit, caught in a multi-million-dollar marijuana bust. This biggest bust in Caroline County in Virginia. But I mean, you could find the video. I ain't gonna get into detail of all the stuff that happened. I'm just gonna skip the California stories for a bit. Those times, that I had guns. Those times guns were held against me. There was times, everything was mainly peaceful in California. There was just a lot of situations, those times when people got away with things that they ought not to. um, but I don't know. Um, after my brother was on the in the paper, I came back, claimed I was homeless, just to keep a low profile, and was crashing at my grandparents for a while, and until everything went away. I ended up being put into this one home by a nonprofit with this one dude who was crazy. Well, everyone's crazy that I've met in my life at this point. But no, this dude, we were putting a home by a nonprofit together. Um, he ended up. I mean, he was homeless. Ended up throwing. He'd freak out at those dishes and threaten to throw the dishes at the house. I put everything in the house. Okay, all the dishes were mine, the furniture. He did nothing to help. Help do anything. So he said he was washing dishes one time. It was like the first time he ever washed dishes. He said, "If I see one more dish in this house, I'm throwing it out the door." And I'm like, I swear to God, I'll beat the fuck out of you. You know what I mean? And it was straight. He was taking light bulbs out of the lights because power, electricity. He didn't want to pay the bill. He was just being a dick. I got put in this house, and this house was supposed to help us. I got put into it with him. I didn't know him from Adam, and obviously he was homeless for reasons because he had a job. He was sleeping in his truck at the point. When I left that house, they ended up. I went to um, I guess I was with the music buddy, and he ended up having issues with the next person they moved in into. So it was like, okay, it wasn't really me. He was a dick. I had to get out of there, so I was living with the music buddy for a while. Upgraded hood. But the music place I lived, he was a good dude. He ended up his wife was a whore that cheated on him a lot and stuff. And, she caused a lot of issues for the very part I was there. But I ended up moving in with him. I told him, "Look, man, I can't." He said I could come live with him. He was a life coach. He was actually a pretty good friend. I visited him not too long ago. Um, but he ended up. The place was nasty. It was a nasty, horrible place. He was a good person, but he knew nothing about keeping anything clean. There was cockroaches and bed bugs everywhere. So it was like, okay, I ended up having to get out of there. Ended up back at my grandparents after a while because you can't. It was like the dude couldn't stand filth, like straight fucking filth. Um, so I called called up my dad and I told him, look, man, I'd rather live on the street than this nasty ass place. Ended up getting back at my grandparents and was there for a little bit. Um, Pretty sure his girl was at the time was on crack, cheating on him a lot and arguments and not from him because he was a good friend. He helped me through a lot. Um, ended up hanging out with my friend Becca for a long time. Shout out Becca McDonald. She ended up passing away. Um, she was a good person. There was an in between spot before I get settled in back in with my grandparents. She's um, she had an autistic kid. I used to babysit her kids and my other friend's kids. Her best friend that lived with her. Used to be one of my favorite places to hang out. So until she was in a horrible car accident, and passed away. Um, she ended up dating this one dude. I didn't agree with it. I didn't like the dude at all, and that started a lot of arguments between our end of our friendship. Closer towards the end, and I guess she didn't. She was in an argument with them. Didn't want to drive. Didn't want him driving her home, but she was scared for him to drive. But she didn't have any other ride. Apparently, he was all cocaine out and shit, and she was just trying to get home. And he ended up killing him, killing everyone in the car. Ended up driving fucked up on cocaine and shit, and running straight off the road into a tree. And everyone died and left their kids, friends, family, kids. And, she was a single mother. It was I ended up getting her name on my arm, tattooed on my arm. Right above my other friend who ended up dying on base. But this is my uncle. Uncle passed away from cancer too. I got his name on the list. But tattoo of memories. So ended up there. Ended up grandparents. Ended up getting a job. Old pastor, youth leader. I got my license finally. Took 30 something odd years. Get my license, and I had a clean record at the time, because I just got my license. So I got my license. Got a job, pest control. They hired me right away. One of the biggest reasons I couldn't get a job in the past was I took carpentry classes, and when I did the carpentry classes, they wouldn't hire me in carpentry because I didn't have my license. So they said it was a liability issue in a lot of jobs. Because if something happened at a job site, I couldn't get the one job site to the other job site fast enough. So their insurance wouldn't allow it. So I ended up in pest control once I finally did get my license. It was a job I was offered. It was a fun job. It lasted 2.5 years. In between it, I ended up getting a second job working on cars because work got a little slow at one point there. They just didn't have all the work for me, so I took in a second job. I was washing cars, pest solutions, and then Corona hit. It was the first time I was doing good in my life, and then Corona came crashing down. Um, so Corona hit, and the car wash got shut down, and Pest Solutions thought they had me tracked. Um, so Pest Solutions thought they had me trapped. And hold on. I gotta answer somebody back about a cord I need. Um. Anyways, that was on the middle of a raise and stuff, and then Corona hit, and they didn't think that they should be obligated to give me what was promised, and we're in arguments. Me and Boss Man always talk shit to each other and stuff, so we're sitting there running our mouths to each other. I was just right along, and he thought just because Corona hit that I wouldn't be able to find another job, and little did he know, Corona opened up a lot of different jobs. But it started an argument, and I was like, okay, well, I just want to know what do you really make then? And he got all shut down and upset that I asked a question like that. And apparently, it was disrespectful. I do got Corona now, by the way. Um, I'm at the end of it. It's my second run, and um, I'm gonna take an intermediate break. Not that. Just give me a second. Um, uh, I just gotta take a picture real quick. I'll take this with me. Um, so what was I talking about? Oh yeah, he didn't think I deserved the raise, and I wasn't really making it at the time. Um, so what chord is this? So he wasn't giving me the raise. I wasn't making it financially. He didn't think I'd get another job, and I ended up finding another job and quitting. And I told him, hey, I was wondering how much he was making. And I was like, actually, because I was wondering if I was going to be making more than you. And this was 2 years of a relationship of working for this dude, and I known him my whole life. Over Corona just kind of got to everybody, I guess. Um, Give me one more second. I gotta send a picture. Um, so once that happened, I ended up going working for Trustway. And Trustway, it's the biggest trust company and pretty much around in America, um, nationally. So, but it was a fucked up company. It was the hardest work I've ever done in my life. When I was in California, I was digging for 12 hours a day, and this work was harder than that. It was literally killing me. It was the most money I ever made. It sucked. It paid to suck. But that's the only reason I worked there so long. And it was like 20 hours overtime, killing myself, working with Mexicans. And a lot of people don't understand, like, it's Mexican slave labor. The Mexicans there, they can't get fired or leave. Their job is tied into their green card, and if they don't have work, they don't have their green card. So they're literally stuck. Um, but it was hella good money, hella hard work, and after a while, I worked my way all the way up to the top. Not the top, to the maintenance department. I started off banging wood, and then I worked running saws for a while. And you know, if you didn't cut 3,000 pieces of wood by lunchtime, something was wrong. You know, I was feeding in the web saw, and then I went and worked outside for a bit, pulling off wood off the rack. Before I'm like, look, man, someone quit the maintenance department, job came open, and I'm like, I really want that job. So they gave me a shot in the maintenance, and I fell in love with it. You know, it was the only thing that wasn't, it wasn't the same thing over and over again, just hammering on wood or throwing things through a machine. It was a lot easier. I wasn't, being rushed, like being yelled by the Mexicans in Spanish. They don't even know what they're saying. You know what I mean? It was it was working on machines. It was the interest that I had. I've always been into computers and machinery. Um, I got stacks of computers everywhere right now, and but the main dude in the mains department hired his buddy, his friend. He kicked me out. And they wanted to put me back. Sorry, I do stuff, Crota. Um, they wanted to put me back in the pulling wood outside, and wanted to throw me right back into the Mexican labor. And I was there for so long to get to that position, and then he screwed me because he thought his buddy hired his buddy from an outside source and wanted him to work there instead, and hired him. Pretty much booted me. And the dude who was training me, he's been there for 4 years. The dude who was training me in the maintenance department, as soon as they booted me, he quit. And then his buddy seen how he was treated me and how he came in getting paid more money than and I was there for longer, and how they kind of just threw me to the curb for him. He thought it was screwed up, so his buddy quit. The dude who worked there for 4 years quit because all on how they treated me, and they both were trying to help me find another job and stuff. Like, this ain't right. I ended up leaving. I applied at every mechanic shop that I could find, because after doing machinery there, it was like I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on machines, so it's like I figured I'd start in auto. and then go in electrical later on and get back to what I really wanted to do because now I had a sight on what I really wanted to do in life. So I've been in auto. I got a job at National Tire and Battery, and I've been there for a year and a half, and I think I'm probably now starting to get over it. I was never a mechanic. I just wanted to learn mechanics. You know what I mean? So it was something I enjoyed in the meantime. It doesn't pay enough. And I ended up having a child. Um, oh yeah, I've been moved out of my grandparents. Moved in with the girl that I had a kid with eventually. And now we're at my dad's. Me and her broke up. We're both living in the same house, different bedrooms. I'm worried about her raising my kid. To be honest, she has major depressive disorder. The world's always falling. Everyone's horrible. Um, I don't want to get too much in a talking down upon my baby mama though. Um, she still had my kid. We still have to deal with each other. But there's a lot of worries there too. Because now it's like, okay, I'm not really making enough money to be able to support at NTB. You know what I mean? And this is why I left Pest Solutions. Originally was not making enough, and it's like, okay, well, I wasn't planning on doing anything, but this being in between job thing and a learning experience that I think I've already gotten, and I need to find something better now. And my brother Joe, he has 2 kids, and I'll worry about them to death. You know what I mean? He's in jail again for drug incidents, and I pray to God when he gets out that he stays clean. His girl still faithful to him, waiting for him to get out, waiting faithfully. And we're all just really, he can't screw up again, man. He screws up again, he's doing life, and that's another concern. So I got concerns with him getting out, doing good. I got concerns with, not being able to make enough to support the job I'm in. Or, I've done a lot of studies, gotten a lot of certifications since, life became normal. Since the whole Cali, everything normaled out eventually. I feel like it's going in the right direction. I feel like might end up being battles later on down the road with my son, maybe. Maybe we could settle it before that happens. There's a calm before a storm right now. We're both in the same house. I know it's not gonna last forever like that. But I feel like I need to get myself in a better financial stable position, making more money. I feel, and I worry about that, man. It's scary. So at this point in life, I'm working. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I got me a job, and I want to be able to support my son more than I do now. And I'm struggling with everything: car payments, life. Just not making enough, man. And worrying about my brother when he gets out. Hopefully, I was there for him when he was going through a lot of his drugs. Oh man, I was the only one there for him. I went to the lowest places just to try to babysit him for a while. Like it was crazy. At one point in our lives, but I don't know. Since I'm at it, I'm not relationship wise, you know, I'm not really good in bed. I'll state that. Like I'm not making it financially. I'm not good in bed. I'm not I'm not a ladies' man. I'm not the best looking person in the world. And it's like I'm just another man fighting in this world of treachery. Anyways, that's my life story. Thank you all for who actually listened through it all the way through. And I hope you enjoy your day.